Welcome to the GHS We the People Forum, hosted in conjunction with the League. And welcome to the 5 candidates running for BOE, Board of Education. Just a reminder, recording of the League's debates, whether in person or taken from a computer screen, may not be used without the League's express written approval. The League will only allow audio video of this event to be broadcast in its entirety, except by the media reporting on the event. We appreciate everyone's effort in attending the event and making it happen today. The League, the candidates, and Greenwich High School, thank you. So it's not necessary for any of you candidates to use any of your time to thank any of us. So now over to Aaron to start the forum. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Hall, and I am the We the People team coach and League of Women Voters Youth Outreach Coordinator. Thank you for joining us. We'll meet the candidates in a moment, but let me first explain the process. Our moderators are juniors Alyssa Feng and Sophie Citron. Our timer and silent candidate announcer is junior Nicole Orlowski. Our Zoom webinar will be quarterbacked by Aya Simone from the League. Each candidate will appear with the other candidate or candidates of their party, as the seats for the board are reserved by party in Greenwich, 2 for the Democrats and 2 for the Republicans. Since there are 3 candidates for 2 Republican seats and 2 candidates for 2 Democrat seats, and all candidates will get equal time, the Republican portion of the forum will be proportionally longer. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond in a neutral and rotating order. Candidates will have their microphones cut off if they exceed the time allotted. However, time is not accumulated, so any candidate who yields time will be contributing to the overall benefit of having more questions asked of their party. Due to other commitments, the Democrats will be going first and the Republicans will be going second. We will now ask the Republicans to return to the Zoom webinar 16 minutes from now, which forces me to do math. So in about 2:14 or so, 2:12, and wait to be let in. Republicans, please depart the Zoom at this time. Thank you. We will now begin with the questions for the Democrats. Please start answering the first question by introducing yourself in 15 seconds or less, and do not consider this as an opening statement. Sophie Citron has the first question.
Ms. Costin, without using critical race theory, how would you teach Greenwich Public Schools students the complexities of race within American history in a constructive, non-confrontational way?
So my name is Laura Costin. I'm a Democrat running for the Board of Education. I have 4 kids in the public schools, and I'm running because I'm fully invested in seeing our students succeed. Regarding critical race theory, there's been a lot of heat around this topic, and I think the first problem is that not everybody maybe understands what critical race theory is. In my humble view, CRT is the notion that racism isn't always person to person. Sometimes it's systemic and it's embedded in our institutions. It can be embedded in our legal system. It can be embedded in our education system. As far as I'm concerned, I don't believe that that's a controversial notion. I am happy that the Greenwich Public Schools is teaching inclusion, diversity. And I think that that's very important for our students to know that not everybody has the same experience that they might have. We all have different experiences. We all bring different perspectives from our environment to this school, this education system. And I think I'm really happy to see that GPS is teaching those things, diversity, inclusion.
Do I start or wait for Alyssa?
You can start.
Hi, all right, thank you guys. Thank everyone for having me. My favorite part of being on the board is engaging with all of you, and I've had the pleasure of doing that over the past 4 years. Real fast on me. I'm currently vice chair of the Board of Education. I'm chair of the budget committee. I'm on the policy committee. I have 3 kids in the public schools, 1 at each level, 1 at the high school, 1 at Central Middle School, and 1 at Parkway, where I'll be heading to shortly for a Halloween parade. I'm running really for the same reason I ran 4 years ago, is that I really believe public education is the foundation of a community. But let me get quickly to critical race theory, and I'm so happy you've asked this question. It's unfortunate to me that our curriculum is being dragged into the national politics, and that's exactly what's happening here. I was reading about this. You know, critical race theory started in 1989. Just to give you guys a sense of that, I wasn't even in high school in 1989. So it was a really long time ago, is my point. But I think what we do, and Laura's did a great job pointing out, what we do teach is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in fact, Greenwich High School is really at the forefront of this. I mean, we have GHS is designated as a no place for hate. We have a stand up against racism. And so we are teaching I really hope we are teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know we are, but I also want to be focused on what we are teaching and making sure that you're all getting the curriculum that you deserve. And I think that we are. I know that a lot of people have been talking about the loss we've had from COVID, and that's certainly the case, but we were also lucky that most of us were in school a lot, and now we have to focus on just being back in school full time, keeping us happy, healthy, and safe.
The second question is, what's the next step towards unmasking students, whether it be reporting tests weekly or requiring vaccinations? What should be considered morally acceptable?
That goes to me, right? Thank you. So let me start with the masks. And since I am currently on the board, I actually was the chair of the policy committee when we came up with the mask policy to get you guys all back in school when not many other districts could. And that was really hard. And I'm really proud of what we did as a board. We worked well together, and we worked really hard with the administration. And of course, people sitting right with you, Ralph Mayo and all of your leaders, they were there with us at the table. And we worked hard to get you back to school in 2020. I know the high school was hybrid, but K through 8 was full on, and we still did better than many other districts. And frankly, the masks is not our call anymore, right? That we're under an executive order. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing as students, because the fact that you're being so smart is the reason that we're doing so well. I mean, our community is way down, and it's because you guys have been a really huge part of that. This is the biggest part of the community is our kids as far as them, and you guys have been really leaders on this. And I know this has not been an easy couple of years. I think we all want to be back to life without masks. As for vaccines, I mean, obviously there's been no decision on that, although your teachers are forced to get vaccinated under executive order or have weekly testing. And I'm really happy to report, and I think you guys have probably read this in the paper, is that we have a very highly vaccinated community. And I know that's what's making the difference of keeping our numbers down and keeping us in school. And then I'm really appreciative for all of you for that. So thank you.
The next question is, does the Board of Education have any intention of reviewing the school's health curriculum, specifically the gender and sexuality related topics?
You're still on mute, Laura.
So I didn't know if I was getting a question on masks as well. Do I just move on to sex ed? So I guess
Ms. Clausen, you'll be answering the mask question as well.
Yes, you will be doing both.
Oh, so I'll start with your question. Which you repeated, reviewing the sex ed curriculum? So, I don't know that the board is the one to review that curriculum. Right now, obviously there's a lot of heat on our curriculum, but I don't know that the ins and outs of that is where a policy board belongs. I don't know that we need to micromanage a sex ed curriculum for our schools. If we're going to review a new one, that's a different story. If one is presented to us and educators say we're not happy with the one we've got, it's not meeting our needs, then sure, we could review it. But I don't know that there's a wholesale review that would come to the board without a discussion with our educators and the superintendent who says, look, the one that my kids saw in 5th grade was old. I mean, that movie was probably decades old. Did it meet the needs of students at that time? I think it was adequate. And we got to review it as parents first. But, unless we're told we need to switch gears, find a new one, I don't know that we'd be digging in to review it right now.
Am I supposed to go, or do you want Laura to answer the math question as well?
Ms. Costin, could you please answer the math question now?
Sorry, Laura.
So I will say that I hate masks. I have more masks than shoes, and it's so depressing. And I'm sure all of you feel the same way. It is it is not normal to, exist in a global pandemic. It is so hard for students, especially. I think that that this issue is thankfully not one that forces us to become health officials as a board. I think that that's not our lane, and thankfully we have a health department. We have the state of Connecticut's health department to let us know when our community can get back to normal. But as a board, we're not health officials, and I don't think that that's our swim lane. I yield the rest of my time.
And now to me on the curriculum issue, right? Yep. I completely agree with Laura. I don't think it's in our purview to focus too much on redoing the sex ed curriculum. There are, first of all, a lot of state mandates around what we have to teach at certain grade levels. And that hasn't come back to the board. However, at our last board meeting, we spent a lot of time looking at curriculum in general, right? We were looking at Big Ideas Math, which is a wonderful program that's been rolled out in the K-8. But also, specifically at the high school, we spent a lot of time on each area with all of the coordinators. I know Lucia Recco, who's on, she was one of the presenters. And it's important that we review the curriculum, especially when there's a change in curriculum. But, and that is one of the sort of the 3 things I always say, one of the things that we really have to focus on, just to remember, is that our role as a board is not to micromanage, right? And I think that unfortunately, that has been what's happened sometimes, is that we get a little bit too much in the weeds. I've spent some time on corporate boards, and so that was something that I was very focused on when I came on this board, is that our educators are the professionals and they come to us with ideas, and we certainly will make decisions, but we're not the ones that should be developing the curriculum. That's not on us. I also think it's important, just as I'm talking about our roles in general, the other key role that we have is creating policy, approving a budget, and of course, hiring the superintendent, who's really the CEO of the district. And that, where I have to just point out, is that our biggest issue was turnover, and I was lucky enough to hire her and put a retention and bonus in place, and hopefully that's addressed a lot of our issues.
The 4th question is, how will the town of Greenwich ensure that another infrastructure issue like the North Midamis ceiling failure or insufficient temperature regulation at GHS won't happen in other Greenwich schools?
I'm so sorry. I think my internet's going in and out, but the question was around infrastructure, correct? Okay.
I had trouble hearing.
And also temperature regulation at Greenwich High School.
What was the part on Greenwich High School?
And temperature regulation.
For some reason, I'm getting in and out. Let me just talk to infrastructure. So yeah, thank you for raising this. I'm so happy that the kids are focused on this, because capital is actually, as I talked about why I read on the first term, I should have also said that my priority is that we are delivering the best in class education system. But the reality is that you always need to balance that with the financials, right? And that's why I ran, because I've spent 20 years in finance. And so I really, at the end of the day, we can only do so much as a board unless we get money. And we have had a lot of issue, frankly, on getting funding on the capital side. The operating has also been a headache, I will admit, but that's sort of starting to catch up. Whereas the capital is just, everyone used the term, kick the can down the road. Well, this is, like I said under my last debate, I can't even see the can anymore. This master facility plan that we came up with was now, it's over 3 years old. The only project we started on is thankfully something you're benefiting from is, well, Cardinal Stadium was kind of actually outside of that scope, but also the high school entryway. But as for JC, OG, Riverside, Central Middle School, like not happening yet. And that's a real problem. And that's the major capital planning. And we're trying to focus again on priorities, which is air quality, accessibility, and safety and security. But the other thing we need to focus on when we look at capital is maintenance. And that gets to the North Miami issue, okay? So if we have to do future investment on upgrades, on things that we have to with the priorities I just mentioned, but if we don't do maintenance and we have been under maintaining our schools, we should be spending 15 to 20 million and we're under 10. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Costin, please address the infrastructure question as well. Would you like me to reread the question?
Yeah, there was an echo from that room. I guess you may be in different places. So I didn't hear the whole thing, but I know it is about infrastructure.
Yes, I can reread it for you. How will the town of Greenwich ensure that another infrastructure issue like the North Miami ceiling failure or insufficient temperature regulation at Greenwich High School won't happen in other Greenwich schools?
Well, Kathleen touched on a lot of what I would tell you. Why we have a facilities plan is this specific issue. We wouldn't, we are just extraordinarily lucky that no students were in that North Miamis classroom, when that collapse occurred, because it would have been an unspeakable tragedy. And no one wants to see, our schools unsafe. Right now, Central Middle School is structurally deficient. We have crack monitors on the walls outside of Central to monitor the building's facade. And I hope that as a board, as working with the finance board, that we can maybe address more than one project at once. Because right now, Old Greenwich has needs. One parent spoke at the last meeting about sewage flooding into classrooms, ceiling tiles falling down on children, and that's just not acceptable. So I hope that we can look at our facilities master plan as a living, breathing document and act where necessary. There's been some reticence from the finance board to allow multiple projects to move forward at once, but right now, we are moving forward on multiple projects at once. There's work going on at North Miamis. There's fields being remediated at the high school, and there's a stadium being built. So I believe that we can manage more than one project at a time, and it might be time to do so.
Just a reminder, the Republicans will be joining in 1 minute. Thank you.
The next question is, do the opinions of parents and adults in the town of Greenwich hold more value than the students in terms of education and well-being? And this will be the final question.
I guess I'll go first. So I said in the last debate, and I'll say it again, I don't believe that parents should be shaping our curriculum. I believe that, not all citizens get to make the laws. And I think we hire professionals to do this. We have to let them do their jobs. I know that there have been some hot button issues about curriculum, but those I don't believe were around texts or materials that have been used for a long time in our curriculum. I think they might have just been supplemental, and I don't think that there's something inherently wrong with what we are teaching our students. So no, I don't believe parents should have an outsized view, and students are lucky enough to be able to engage with your teachers all the time, and I know that they love hearing from you. I don't know that, all the citizens get to make the laws, though, and I think we have to live within our parameters. That's it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Look, Laura and I are parents, and I'm speaking to the students, and I was actually joking to someone, you guys are like my Venn diagram. You're both my constituents and my potential voters. So this is the most important discussion I'm going to have. And no, look, our teachers and our superintendent and Ralph Mayo and Lucia Recco and all the people and Aaron Hull and all the people sitting on this call with us, they went to school to teach, right? And I probably wouldn't ask them to do my financial models. And so I think it's important that, and by the way, the curriculum is, we follow, it's mandated by the state, right? And then we sort of, we help they deliver that curriculum, right? So, and one of the other things that I think is also important to note is that teachers have to have also their personalities in the classroom, right? And I said that in my last debate, right? They're not robots. And so I know that we have to we provide them with all the tools in order to deliver curriculum, but then they also have to be able to deliver it as it meets the needs of the students, right? And so that I think is very important. I will end with that. I worked tirelessly these last 4 years. We were thrown a couple curveballs with the superintendent leaving, but we hired a great one, and with COVID, and we worked tirelessly together and collaboratively. And this was a great board. And I'm looking forward to serving with Laura and whoever is elected on the Republican side. I'm really looking forward to it. And I say that as they come on, so hopefully they heard me say that.
Nice job, Laura. Nice job, Kathleen. And welcome back, Cody. Welcome back, Mike. I think Aaron is going to join us again. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole. He's not? Okay, he won't. Okay, so I think with that, given the time constraint, Kathleen and Laura, good luck and thank you for joining us in the forum.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you so much. And then just to show how great a team this was, thank you guys so much for letting us go so Laura and I could attend our children's parades. So thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we will now, once the two of them have left the room, we will begin the same forum question and answer format for the Republican Party. At this point, we have 2 out of the 3 candidates online. Given the time constraint, we will begin. If Megan is able to connect and join us, we'll include her at that point. But at this point, we have 2 candidates. So Nicole, Sophie, and Siwan, if you can go through the same process that you did with 2 candidates. If the 3rd one joins, we'll include her going forward. Over to you guys.
The first question is, without using critical race theory, how would you teach Greenwich Public School students the complexities of race within American history in a constructive, non-confrontational way?
So I'm sorry, my apologies. That sign means I go first? Okay.
Yes.
So sorry about that. Hi everybody. So thanks for having me. So I have the long name, Michael Joseph Mercanti Anthony. You can just tell people to vote for your long name. It's a good question. And I think, thank you for it.
Sorry to interrupt, Mike, but your
so I dealt board that we teach, Oh no.
If it's just me, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to make sure that we give you the opportunity to answer with your answer being heard. So if you want to start again, it seems to be a bit better now.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was, as I was saying, I was an AP assistant teacher as a high school teacher for 10 years. So this was something I dealt with regularly every day. It's crucial that we understand, all aspects of our nation's history, and students are taught to think critically about it. I think there's a difference, what you see in some of the critical race theory concepts and some of the debate is where people are pushing back, and certainly where people like Cody and I are pushing back is our responsibility as a school system is be able to teach all of you how to think, not what to think. Political opinions of faculty, political opinions of adults, it's not appropriate necessarily. What is appropriate is to give you all balanced information about all aspects and all perspectives, such that you can make up your own mind. And that certainly includes, when it comes to English, it certainly includes reading authors from a variety of perspectives and variety of viewpoints. And certainly includes in social studies talking about slavery and the civil rights issue and all these other areas. And by doing that, being able to understand really what a great country we are. That despite warts and all, we continue to grow closer towards living up to the ideals in our founding document.
Should I start or? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think you asked two questions. One was specifically about critical race theory, and then one was just how to teach race in general. I think Mike nailed it with the general idea that teaching is about teaching how to think. So whatever idea is out there, students need to have the ability to interpret it themselves and come to their own conclusions about it. I think, race is a complex issue. How do you teach it? I don't think I'm going to cover that in 1 minute. I think critical race theory in particular is probably something that is actually, if addressed correctly in the classroom, is potentially useful. It means a lot of different things to different people. So, I think there are people that say, oh, if someone is against critical race theory, they don't want to talk about race at all, or if someone is for it, that they're a Marxist. I think there's different academics that put forward different ideas about it, and I think the key is to teach students to be able to say, okay, here's an idea that's out there. How would you think about empirically testing it? Just to pick one particular aspect of it, are all disparities in the performances of different groups due to prejudice? That is a question that can be tested, and I think students should be taught how to think through issues so that regardless of whatever their teacher's personal opinion is, that the students can come to their own conclusions. And that is an issue that I think probably gives students a better opportunity than most to do that.
The next question is, what is the next step towards unmasking students? Whether it be reporting tests weekly or requiring vaccinations, what should be considered morally acceptable?
Did we just lose Mike?
Yes, it looks like we just lost Mike. So let's hope he can.
Mike's like, I don't want to answer that. I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll run with it first, and then when Mike joins. So I think there's two separate issues around this. One is there's practical constraints on the town. So the governor right now sets mask policy. I think the question is when, at some point, when it becomes the choice of the town or the school system to set their own policy, what's the right way to think about that? I think that is a question of trade-offs and evaluating trade-offs at the time that choice is made. And so, what are the trade-offs? Well, it's what's the latest research around in broadly speaking, with some of the other choices related to COVID, what is safe for students? What isn't? Do things make a difference? I think one really important point is that it is not okay for leaders to say, oh, we're doing this because someone else told us to, but we're not going to give you any further justification. I think it's incumbent on whether it's the school board or the superintendent or individual principals, if they make a choice and the choice is supposed to be based on this trade-off, they should be able to justify it. And I don't think it's a good demonstration of leadership if the justification is just, oh, somebody else told me to do this. And so I think you have to look at the data at the time and say, okay, well, does it seem like this is an appropriate trade-off? Mike, we figured you just wanted to dodge that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I came out, I don't know what happened to my internet. I logged back in on my phone, so it should be okay. What was the question?
I can repeat the question for you,
Sure.
Dr. Anthony. So what is the next step towards unmasking students? Whether it be reporting tests weekly or requiring vaccinations, what should be considered morally acceptable?
Right. So okay. So I heard some of that Cody's answer, and I agree with Cody. So this is
I think it's important to understand the Board of Ed's role here, right? So much of this is not the Board of Ed's decision. I've been very clear that I'm not in favor of us lifting a mask mandate right now. I think masks are currently keeping us safe. When that decision's made, it's going to be made by experts that are much higher up the food chain than the Greenwich Board of Education. Right now we're under a governor's mandate. There's CDC guidance. I think it doesn't make sense to get ahead of the CDC and other folks like that. I don't imagine that that's going to be in the way things are going. I hope that's sooner rather than later. I don't like my kids going to school in mask. I've got a 7 and a 5-year-old, and hopefully that's going to end soon. But the priority right now has to be keeping everybody in school and keeping everybody safe. And we don't do that by getting ahead of the experts in the field.
Question is, does the BOE have any intention to review the school's health curriculum, especially the gender and sexuality related?
I didn't fully get that question. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I think we're having a hard time with your mic and audio connection. I think it's the room that you're in. So Sophie or Nicole, if you wouldn't mind reading the question again, apologies.
Yeah, I can read the question again. Does the Board of Education have any intention of reviewing the school's health curriculum, specifically the gender and sexuality related topics?
Mike, if you would like to start by answering
sure.
that question.
No problem. I didn't know who was because I'm on my phone. I can't see everybody. I can only see one person speaking. So I didn't know if someone was willing to sign.
I will let you know next one.
No problem. Sorry about that. I appreciate everybody's patience here. We've all learned technological challenges here. Look, curriculum is obviously a hot button issue, whether that's dealing with critical race theory or emerging trends and issues of gender and sexuality. The board's responsibility, and I think it was very clear here, the board's responsibility is to vet all curriculum. And to approve all curriculum. Sometimes that curriculum comes down from the state. They insert state mandates, and sometimes it comes up from the community, including students. I think what we have to do, particularly around these themes, I'd love to see more student involvement in these conversations. Particularly around how the student reps are to the board. Right now, you have 2 student reps. They do a great job. They've done a great job for years of giving a report of how things are, but we don't have a lot of time to dialogue. Right, I'd love to have more opportunity for board members to meet regularly with the student leadership about issues of curriculum, issues of the school, and things like that. So we can really talk these things through and identify what is appropriate as far as next steps for these concepts.
Cody?
Yeah, if the question is if the board has an intention to review that, I don't know, but if I get elected, then I'll have a better view of what the overall board, what their intentions are. I would say that when you think about boards have to prioritize what the biggest issues are. I'm not sure, just based on kind of in my engagement with people in the community through this campaign process, this is actually the first time I've heard of that being an issue. So if I had to guess, I would say that it's probably lower on the list of priorities. But to Mike's point, when you think about the curriculum is reviewed and approved by the board, so to the extent there are, interesting questions about that in terms of how health is covered from a curriculum standpoint, and it'll be addressed then. I don't know if I have much more to add to that. Actually, you know what? If I have 40 seconds, I'll add one more thing, which is just on that point of priorities. There are some big issues facing Well, I only had 40 seconds left, so I won't take a minute 30. I see that. There are some things I would call more pressing issues. I've talked a little bit about this, but Central Middle School is deemed a structurally unsound building in certain parts of it. We had a ceiling collapse in North Miami last year. So just when you think about what things the board maybe would want to prioritize, like structural safety of buildings to me would be high up on the list. And, those are things that I could probably say are going to be very likely to be high on the priority list.
Yeah.
On that note, the next question is, how will the town of Greenwich ensure that another infrastructure issue like the North Miami ceiling failure or insufficient temperature regulation at Greenwich High School won't happen in other Greenwich schools?
What a great lead in. Yeah, I mean, how do you ensure it? I think you have to be, I've talked a little bit about this, that I think, there's a lot of attention is given to the Board of Education right now, and things have been kind of politicized and very exciting at the board meetings and stuff. A lot of what the board should be doing is actually quite boring, and things like structural safety of buildings would be kind of one of those things that probably doesn't get a lot of attention unless it's being politicized. I think that, so there's a few interesting observations. One, I mentioned that Central has been flagged as structurally unsound in certain areas. The North Miami building was not. So when they did the review of all the buildings, it actually wasn't listed as a problem. That's because of the, basically the way that they installed this ceiling a number of years ago, 20 years ago, was done incorrectly. And, there are some people that would say, oh, you could have never known that would happen. I think that you would probably, that it presents a good opportunity to step back and say, maybe we should do a deeper review of previous, try to think of what are some structural issues that might exist in buildings from previous work done, and go and just double check those. That would seem to me like a very good use of spending, because it's the kind of thing that this is Greenwich, right? Like the idea that we would have a ceiling collapse, there really shouldn't be an excuse for that. And so I think you have to kind of do the boring work to go uncover those potential issues.
Yeah, Cody's absolutely right. Look, if the North Miami had collapsed when school was in session, and landed, and created any kind of hurt students, had any kind of, tragedy, we'd be talking about that a lot more right now, right? There would have been reports issued, there would have been commissions, there would have been fact finding. The only reason why we've moved on so quickly is because it happened over break. To Cody's point about systems here, and the board's boring work, because this is I don't think, yes, we've checked all the buildings about this. We made sure the specific ceiling issue isn't existing somewhere else. We've got North Miami students elsewhere, so classes can be in session. We haven't gone back and said, well, why did this get through? Why wasn't this flagged in the $500,000 building review that the board commissioned 5 years ago of all buildings? What was the breakdown in the system that allowed that to happen? And why aren't there any more? And what else could be there? That's the kind of really detailed work that's the purview of the board. We can't just move on now and talk about other things. We really need to go back and understand what happened there and what happened. It's the same thing with some of those curriculum incidents that we had last year, where the inappropriate video was shown.
Huh. Mike, you got cut.
The last question is, do the opinions of parents and adults in the town of Greenwich help the students in terms of education and well-being?
I'm sorry, that cut out again. Could you just say that one more time?
Sophie, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. The question is, do the opinions of parents and adults in the town of Greenwich hold more value than the students in terms of education and well-being?
So it would be a pandering question answer for me to say, no, they don't, that would be pandering to the crowd. But the reality is, no, they don't. And that's why I talked about what I did earlier. And maybe it's because, I spent 10 years teaching high school and 23 years as I spent 23 years in education. You all know better than us a lot of time. I mean, what's really going on here in the high school. Where areas can improve. You're the closest to the ground about the elementary and the middle school experience. So no, absolutely not. And that's why I really think we need to look at different ways for your voice to come out. This particular debate is awesome, but it can't just happen, around election time when we're trying to convince people like us are trying to convince you all to vote for us. It has to be a systemic system where those kind of communications are ongoing in a real way. So like monthly meetings with student leadership, things like that. I think that's crucial to really having a productive system. You can inform on a lot of things, not just at the high school. But the reading curriculum at the elementary, about middle school curriculum, about middle school life, all these things, stress management, all these things are important. I don't know what time, I think I'm out of time. So, but absolutely, you're just as important.
So I guess where the question was raised, do parents have more value than students? Or should their opinion be more value than students? I don't know how to answer that because I think there's going to be different times and circumstances where one, opinion might matter more than the other. I mean, just when you think about it, what do the students possess? You have the knowledge of yourself and your current circumstances, and you're on the ground seeing things up close. But your parents have wisdom from living a longer life, and also have sometimes the benefit of seeing things in a way that, frankly, a teenager just may not fully appreciate. So I wouldn't dismiss the value of either opinions. I think they both should be important. It wouldn't be right to run a school system without consideration of both, but I wouldn't want to put either universally above the other in all circumstances. I think it's just going to depend. And I think all that really matters from a practical standpoint is that, you would have that both should have a voice. And then there are different times where others may pay more attention to one voice over the other.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to hand it over to Aaron. Aaron, over to you for the closing.
All right, thank you. All right, there we go. I'm running. I've got a class full of students here and wanting them to get the full experience of the debate. I want to thank the Republican candidates. Thank the Democratic candidates who stepped off. They're watching a Halloween parade right now, so having a lot of fun as well. I do want, in the interest of transparency, I want to read the following, and in the interest of partisan equity, we're stopping with the same 4 questions that the Democrats received, the Republicans received as well. That means that we have roughly 9 minutes left for the Republicans, but there were to be 3 candidates. I'll read the following that I received at 1:40 p.m. and we were setting up, getting students in place, making sure the candidates were aware of all the policies. This is from Megan Galetta. Hi, Aaron. Unfortunately, I must attend a meeting for work, which I cannot decline. I am sorry I will not be able to participate in the debate this afternoon. Many thanks for the opportunity. Warm regards, Megan. So just wanted to make sure everybody is on board with that. And with that, it's Friday afternoon. We're all headed into a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much to our candidates. Thank you to our moderators, our timer. Thank you to the league. And thank you very much for participating in the democratic process. Please encourage your parents and guardians to go out and vote, or go out and vote yourselves, and have a wonderful weekend, GHS. Thank you very much.